to go. So everyone, static sites, triple equals, a great performance, especially with Nuxt.js. And before I start, I just have to say a mega well done, amazing talk there, the talk before me, Rwana. Absolutely amazing. And I hope you were listening carefully because I'm just going to touch up on what she said and just kind of like show you the importance of static sites. So a little bit about me. I'm head of learning and developer advocate at Nuxt.js, a writer at Ultimate Courses, a teacher at View School, Google developer expert, media developer expert for Cloudinary, and Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. And you can follow me on LinkedIn, Debbie O'Brien, and Twitter, Debs_O'Brien. So what I will cover: how static sites work, the benefits of static sites, why you should use static sites, and some Nuxt modules and tips to improve performance. But first of all, I'm going to take you a trip back to the past, and I'm going to show you how sites were built in the 90s. For those of you who were born from 96 onwards or in the 2000s, like you've probably never seen anything like it in your life. For those who are like me, who are back around in those days, you're just going to love this. This is for you. Static sites of the 90s. Space Jam is probably one of the most iconic static sites of all time. It was built in 1996. For those that don't know what Space Jam is, it's a movie made by Warner Brothers with Michael Jordan about basketball and includes Looney Tune characters like Bugs Bunny, etc. It is absolutely amazing. If you've never watched it, seriously, you should watch it. But the website is still live today, exactly as it was, untouched, from 1996. Now, you're probably looking at it saying, that is the most ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. And in a way, you're right, but you have to understand that back then, that was all we could do. And they have literally taken on board everything they could do and literally like made it happen. And this is what's really, really, really cool. And all those planets there are actually clickable. It doesn't probably feel like it to you because you're used to hovering over something and you get an underline or something spins or changes. And it's not going to happen on this website because we didn't have that technology back then. So you'd be surprised, and there's text over some images and they're all clickable. So seriously, start clicking away and get the feel for this website because it's really, really, really brilliantly done. Now, speaking of this website, when you go to create a website, whether it's today or in 1996, we all should do exactly the same. And that is write it down, plan it out. This is the actual official one from the Space Jam on the 9th of the 5th, 96. Graphical links of sponsors, integrated inside, visual illustrations, games and lots of fun stuff, solar system. So this is their notes as they're planning along and creating this website. And really, I encourage you as well, write things down. Don't just take a framework and start jumping in the framework and coding straight away without knowing where you're going. This is really cool. This is their like sitemap of what they're building. And it just goes to show you like seriously what's involved in this website. So the top line is all those links, all those planets that we've seen in the last screen. And inside those pages are all like lots of other pages, right? So if you actually look at what's going on inside it, you can see there's a lot there. I mean, you've got trailer video clips, you've got photos, animated character sketches. There's a Match the Monster game. There's a Looney Tunes coloring book. There's screensavers. So there's a lot of interactivity. And it's not just like your boring static site as we think static sites are. There's a lot going on there. So it really is an amazing showcase of a static site and what can be done with static sites. Now, really, really cool. And this is from the Rolling Stone. It's a couple of years old, but it's still today exactly the same. So even today, with its basic HTML pre-broadband file sizes and Flash-free architecture, the site is easy to navigate even on a mobile phone. The movie clips encoded in QuickTime are somewhat grainy, but still viewable. Nothing was designed to still work after 19 years, now 24 years. It was simply designed to work. Now, I love that. They never, ever thought like this website is going to last 24 years. They just made it work. They just wanted the website to work. And it's really cool because not many websites have lasted. The websites from 96 and around that time have not existed. And some after that have gone into other architectures. Like anyone who built websites in Flash, do you remember those days? Yeah, they don't exist anymore. We can't use Flash. So there's a lot of things that like have been outdated, have never made it past it, and Space Jam still survives. And this is really cool. So they have like browser icons, right? So if you're tired of that glowing N in the corner, change it to a hyper cool spinning basketball, right? Now, if you don't know what that N in the corner is, so I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. Unfortunately, this only works on a Microsoft running Netscape. Sorry, Windows users. So we're talking about Netscape, the browser that we used to all use back then. And this one, basically, instead of the N for Netscape, you could use a spinning basketball as your browser icon. Now that is just cool. What's cool about it is that this website has outlived the browser. So the browser has now gone. It doesn't exist anymore. The browser it was designed for doesn't exist. We now have other browsers, and this website still exists, and everything works exactly as it does, except for that one thing, because Netscape doesn't exist. I mean, I just think that's really, really cool. The trivia quiz, there's a quiz there, and you can kind of like test out what rival calls bugs a loony-eared galoot, and if you get the right answer, you can go forward, and if you don't, so there's a hell of a lot going on there. You can see there on the left side there the frames. We used to use frames back then, which is, oh, it was a nightmare. Anyone if you have used frames, you can just just remember those days. But again, really, really cool website, 404 page. Well, we've no idea how you got here, but you've discovered a now empty page of information. Congratulations. Now please go somewhere else. Thank you. And what I love about it is that the footer is right up there, right under the text, because we couldn't put that footer down at the bottom back then. We didn't have view height possibilities. We didn't have what was available to us. That was as good as it got. So your footer just stayed there, you know, yellow on a yellow background. Accessibility, that would just, yeah, that would be terrible these days. But if you look at what they had back then, 1996, to create this website, absolutely incredible. So, and I want to just take you a little bit back to the future, back to today. And this year, we actually released Lighthouse 6. So Lighthouse 6 came out. And Lighthouse 6, what I'm talking about is not the children's activity book. I'm talking about the Chrome DevTools. So to check your performance, there was a lot of changes. So for example, the first contentful paint, that used to be worth 20%. It's now worth only 15%. What's really incredibly changed is the largest contentful paint. That's now worth 25%. So your website, the largest amount of website that has to be painted so the user can kind of see something, is worth 25%. Total blocking time is now worth 25%. So if you're blocking your user that they're not able to see something, then that's a problem, and that's going to penalize you with performance. Time to interactive has been hugely reduced because it's not so important for the user to be able to click that button. They need to be able to read and see what's going on. And if they have to wait a little bit to click, that's kind of okay. It's not as important, but really we want to be able to paint that page and get that content, get that out there. So that has changed hugely just in the last couple of months. And many of your websites now are not as performant as they were, and you might have to make some changes. And what's really, really cool, Space Jam has got 100 for performance today. This was taken literally today, and Lighthouse 6, and they're still scoring 100. So a website that was built in 1996 is like the most performant website out there. And that's just brilliant. I mean, their first contentful paint is 0.3 seconds. The largest contentful paint is 0.7 seconds, and the time to interactive 0.3 seconds. Total blocking time, 0. Now that is what you should be building today. That's going to help, like Rowana said, in Africa, you don't have as much internet connection. There are people that just don't have great internet. You want to be building something like this to cater for the whole world, not just cater for the people who, like me, have a hell of a lot of internet in my apartment, and I don't have to worry about, you know, having bad internet. We need to worry about the rest of the world because it's not just about us. So seriously, like, kudos to these guys who built this website back in the day: Donald Buckley, Dara Lynn Weiss, Michael Tritter, Jen Brown, and Andrew J. Stachler. A really amazing job. I'm sure, like, they never thought that this website would still be here today. And a funny story, actually. So Warner Brothers built the website to go along with the movie, right? The movie made loads of money. It was a huge success, most successful movie ever for basketball. And then obviously, you know, you go into the next movie, and everything gets forgotten about. So I think Warner Brothers in 2001 stopped actually making websites, and they outsourced everything. So they weren't really kind of thinking about what they had in their archives, you know. And it was a couple of guys were, you know, looking over the old film, Space Jam, and they kind of Googled, and they actually accidentally came across the website. I'm not sure if it was 15 years later or something like that. They came across it, they put it on social media, on Reddit, and said, wow, look, this website is still online today. And it went viral. Everyone started looking at the website. Because remember, in 1996, for example, I actually didn't have internet in my house. So I never saw that website in 1996. I mean, it was there, but we didn't all have access to internet, right? So many people started looking at it. They got about 500,000 visits in one day, and they kind of panicked, right? Because they kind of said, "Wow, we're getting all these visits, and they're looking at a website that's built in like really old technology and really kind of like it's not showing our best. It's kind of like not what we want people to be seeing." So they took it offline. They got scared. They took it offline. And luckily, one of the guys was still working there, and I can't remember if it was Donald or Michael or Andrew, was still working in Warner Brothers at the time. And he said, "No way, this has to go online. You can't take that site down. That needs to stay up there." So they managed to put it back up there. So it's only down for a couple of hours. So luckily, thanks to one of those guys, it's still there today. Otherwise, we would never be having this talk right now. So yeah, absolute brilliant story, Space Jam website. And that basically just brings me to what happened during the 90s. So the static sites, maybe they weren't all looking at these amazing static sites. They were built by Warner Brothers. But people kind of went, 90 static sites, they're very static, and it's time to move to SSR. So basically, people kind of needed something more. So we moved into server-side rendering. Now, we've already seen how server-side rendering works. So just to kind of like a quick recap on what server-side rendering gives you. And basically, like you can share code between pages. So instead of using frames, we can now share the header and the footer across different pages. So that was brilliant. And we can get data from a database, right? So now you don't have to have all the content inside the HTML. You can now go to a database, get everything you wanted, and that was much easier to manage. That page is then populated on the server. Now it does need a server. So you got to go up to the server and you've got to like get everything. And then basically that server is going to then render the HTML and send it back to the client, send it back to the user, to the browser. Now you do have good search engine optimization. So from the static sites to the server-side rendering, we weren't losing on search engine optimization. So it's still very, very good from a marketing point of view. And, you know, basically Michael went, "Yeah, I like this. This sounds pretty good to me. I could do this." So yeah, basically server-side rendering. But hang on, Michael, things are not always as good as they seem. So basically with server-side rendering, there are some bad points. I mean, can't always be good, can it? So with a server-side render application, you have to call the server on every page. So every time you change the page, you're calling the server and you're re-getting all that stuff and you're sending it back again. So it's kind of like, you know, it's like someone's pressing a hard refresh on the page all the time. And this creates like minor page flickers. Now, back then, a minor page flicker was normal. It was like, of course you can have a minor page flicker. But nowadays, to have a minor page flicker is horrible. Our eyes just don't like, no way, we don't want to see that. So yeah, that's a problem with server-side rendering. You need a server, right? And servers cost money. And I hate spending money. I prefer everything to be free. So why pay for something if it's free? With a server-side rendered application, you need to have a server, so you need to spend money. So yeah, that's not too good. And it's not as performant. Like I'm not saying that it's not performant. I'm just saying it's not as performant because it does have to go up to there to the server. It has to get all that data, and then it has to process it, and then it has to send it back. So there's a little bit of a time there. And as Rowana said, if you're in Africa, you know, you're going to a server, and the server could be in Tokyo or America. It's not even there beside you. So that takes a little bit of time as well. So yeah, and the front and back end code mixed together. Now we're talking about the server-side render applications that came around after the 90s. So PHP, .NET, etc. So all your front-end code is mixed together, which makes it a terrible developer experience, especially if you're a front-end engineer. You know, you don't want to be diving into .NET code. And if you're a .NET engineer, you don't want to be seeing CSS all over the place. So nowadays, obviously, with the server-side rendered applications of Nuxt.js, for example, you have your front code separate to the back. But when it came about, server-side rendered, front and back code mixed together, was just not good. So along came single page applications. And these were like the answer to all our prayers, right? This was like fantastic when it came out. You know, we could share components across pages. So your header, your footer, but as well a button, a card, they could all be shared across different pages. And this made front-end development like, wow, yeah, this is now fantastic. Front-end code was separate. We were in our own world, and we were like just connecting to the database through APIs and getting everything we wanted that way. So we were happy as front-end developers, single page applications. We got faster navigation, right? So going from one page to another, it's like really, really fast. And we got no more page flickers, right? Because it's only one page. Now, when I say only one page, I don't mean like, you know, the WordPress websites that like have one page, it goes all the way down, and you think like, you know, this is one page. It's not really that kind of one page. It's one page because there's one page, but then every time you change the page, so you have like different routes. but it's actually kind of fake routes almost. So when you go to the next route, it's really on the same page. It's just the header and the footer stay the same and the hydration is kicking in, and it's basically like repainting that page with the new content of what has changed. If only one thing has changed, it's just repainting that one thing. Everything else is kind of staying the same. And that's what makes it really, really fast. And yeah, everything is done in the client. It's client-side rendering, so it's done in the browser. It's done right there. So you're not using the server. You're not having to go up and get those things. So it's pretty fast. So yeah, Michael's like ready to sign on this one. Yep. If we're going to build a new website for Space Jam, let's build a single page application because it's fantastic. I'm there. But hang on a moment, Michael. You know, it's not always all good. Let's listen to the buts. You know, there's always a but, isn't there? So with single page applications, and we've already seen this, the initial page load is quite slow. As Rana explained, you've got to go and get all that JavaScript for that whole website has to be downloaded. So you have to download everything. And once that's downloaded, then it's super fast. But the initial page load is quite slow. So if you don't have a great internet connection and you have a massive single page application, you might be waiting for a little bit. It's a simple HTML page, right? Because if you get a single page application, you view the page source, you will see it's literally like div ID equals app, and there's nothing more inside there until the JavaScript loads and takes over that page. And once that does it, then you have like content on the page. But that's kind of not great for search engine optimization because, you know, okay, they do say that search engines can now crawl JavaScript, and that is true for some of them. But if you have a mistake in your JavaScript, a minor little error, then it won't be able to crawl it. And not all search engines can crawl it. So it depends on your market. And if you're working for an international company and the marketing team are never going to go for a single page application, they're just going to say, no way, we hate JavaScript frameworks, and they hate it because of this, because of the bad SEO with single page applications. And again, not great for performance. Again, like I said, it's not that it's terrible, it's just it's not great because it's got to load all that JavaScript first. You got to wait for all that first. Now, that is why static sites are back. Seriously, we've gone in a whole circle. We started with static sites, we went to SSR, we went to single page applications, and we've come back right round again. And static sites are back for a reason. First of all, free hosting. So it's cheaper, right? I mean, free is cheaper, right? So you can host on like Netlify, on Vercel, you can host on Azure Static Web Apps. You can host for free, and that's really, really important when it comes to a website, especially in underdeveloped countries that don't have a lot of money and you want to get a website out there. And now you can host them for free. This is really cool. Pre-rendered page, so everything is faster because you don't have to go to that server and wait for everything to be rendered and sent back. You don't have to wait in the browser for all that JavaScript to download and then repaint that page. Pre-rendered means it's already there, and that makes it super fast and super accessible. There's no server needed, which obviously is cheaper, but also it's safer, right? So you're not having those attack vectors. Like, remember the WordPress days? How many times were your page hacked? Oh my God. So yeah, having no server means it's much, much safer. Excellent search engine optimization. Everything is already there and ready. So that makes it, you know, super, super search engine optimization. Excellent. And of course, the performance is excellent because like everything is there, everything's ready to go. So it's just got really, really, really great performance. And this is one I'm really, really, really like keen to share. It's also greener. It reduces the carbon footprint. Now, we've lived in a year this year that's been like no other, and we've been all locked up and everything has stopped still. Airlines, flights, ferries, etc. have all stopped. And this has helped our environment a hell of a lot. Now, we have seen the impact of 2 months of just stopping everything for 2 months and what it's done. So trying to produce greener websites really is going to make a difference, and it will reduce the carbon footprint. And we should really, really keep that in mind when it comes to choosing how you're going to build your application, what you're going to use. Keep in mind that static sites, there's a reason. And remember with Nuxt, you can build a static site, you can build a server-side rendered application, or you can build a single page application. You can do all three in Nuxt. So it's literally just a matter of you choosing. You're the one that decides, hey, I want to build a greener website, so this is why I'm choosing static sites instead of single page application. You know, that's cool. And yeah, so Michael's ready to sign on this one. And not just Michael, the whole Looney Tunes characters are behind him. And they're basically saying, if we're going to rebuild our website, Space Jam, we're going to build it as a static site, definitely, for many, many of those reasons. Going back to the greener, did you know that the IT sector already consumes an estimated 7% of global electricity? That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Like wow, 7%. So just imagine. And it's actually funny because when I started seeing this, I kind of thought, I have all these old WordPress websites on a server somewhere. I'm paying hosting every year just to keep them there, and I don't even want them. But this year I took them all down. I said, you know what? No, you need to get down off that server. And the ones I wanted, I rebuilt as Nuxt static sites and put them live for free. And that just, for me, as I've been greener and helped the environment just by doing that. And just to show you, like a server-side render page, this web page is dirtier than 70% of web pages tested. And that's 1.63 grams of CO2 produced every time someone visits this web page. That's crazy. And like literally like 9 trees, this web page emits the amount of carbon that 9 trees absorb in a year. Wow, like that's one website. So we need to start planting trees everywhere. We're going to keep building server-side render applications. Space Jam, hooray. This web page is cleaner than 95% of web page tested, only 0.05 grams of CO2. So even in 1996, before we started destroying the world with flights and ferries and all sorts of technology, started destroying the environment, Space Jam already were greener than the majority websites out there. That's just cool. Now, I know you said like, yeah, but Space Jam's small and it's not a front-end framework. And that's why I did the nuxtjs.org one, because that is using the Nuxt framework and even using a JavaScript library and using styles and CSS, etc., a lot more than what Space Jam had. We're still 72% cleaner than the rest, right? With only 0.45 grams. And I know like we could do better for sure. We're not like the top, but at least that gives us a green and we're kind of like, yeah, we're happy with that. And we could like improve on that for sure. And there's only 3 trees we need. So again, Space Jam was 1 tree. So they were like the best for sure. But the server-side rendered one was like 9 trees. So there's a big difference, right? And if we can just reduce, everyone just reduce you by 6 trees, I mean, like that's a lot of trees. So yeah, performance matters. And it's really, really important, especially, for those countries that don't have great internet or people who are on trains or just having a bad day or the electricity cutting out or, wildfires are going on in California, they're losing electricity and now all of a sudden, people are just, reliant on their mobile phones. Now, performance matters. And just to show you the difference, this website is a server-side rendered application and it's built by a friend of mine, one of the Nuxt ambassadors, and he's done the most amazing job building this, and him or the company he's working for who built it has had to hire someone to come on board to try and improve the performance. Now they got a performance of 82, and even with specialists on board, they said, this is as far as you're going to get. This is amazing. This is excellent. You can't get any better. And yeah, it's true. But this is a server-side rendered application. It's always not going to be as performant as static sites. So you've just got to, live with that as well. And, that's why I'm kind of saying, now I'm not saying that you should only build static sites. Sometimes you do need a server-side rendered application, and I completely am aware of that, but just sometimes you don't. So start thinking static sites first, and then kind of go, oh, now this is not working for me. Now I can move to server-side rendering rather than starting with server-side rendering and then like changing only then. So yeah, for example, the Nuxt.js website, 99 with performance. Now this is out of the box. This is without hiring anyone to like do any work on it, without doing any kind of performance enhancements. This is just out of the box, the latest update of Nuxt.js, and bang, we've got 99 performance. Now that's cool. So that's the kind of, that's what you want to be aiming for. So what about content, right? We spoke about before how we went into server-side rendering because we wanted like content coming from a database, etc. And now we're going back to static sites. So how can we get that data? So we can do that just as before with a headless CMS. What's a headless CMS? We literally cut the head off, right? So a headless CMS, it's basically a way of saying that your front end and your back end are separate, right? But they can be joined together and you can change heads. Wouldn't that be cool? Imagine changing your head for someone else's head. I like that idea. So yeah, for example, you could have a front end in Vue and you could change it then to Nuxt and still keep the same back end, or you could have a back end and just keep Nuxt and then change the backend, change the CMS. So being able to do that makes it's a headless, which means it can just connect one to another by just connecting to that API. So we have Nuxt content, right? That's our new release that was out about 4 months ago. And Nuxt content is a Git-based headless CMS, absolutely fantastic. Really encourage you to check it out if you're a developer and you just want to get content out there. This is going to like be super simple. The setup is like there's no setup. And it just works. You can write Markdown and you can have Vue components in your Markdown and bang, you've just got content out there. So it's brilliant. But if you want something, with login systems and a little bit nicer and more user-friendly, then you've got amazing headless CMSs like Strapi, you've got Prismic, you've got Storyblock, you've got Sanity, and you've got a hell of a lot more. So they're all really, really cool. And just check them out and then you can have all your content you know, somewhere else, and your static site just doing the job of just having the view files. Generate your site. So how do you generate your site, right? So with Nuxt, we use the Nuxt generate command. And basically, yes, what you have to do is you have your website and you're developing, and then when you go to put it on the hosting, it needs to be generated, right? So at build time, it's generated. What that does is it basically generates a static file, a HTML file for every single one of your routes, every single page, right? Now, the great thing about the latest release of Nuxt is you don't have to create a function or anything to basically crawl the routes. There's a crawler installed, and it's going to know which routes to crawl, and it's going to automatically crawl those routes, even dynamic routes. It's going to crawl them all. It's going to know, unless you've got a hidden secret page, then you've got to, like, you know, tell Nuxt that exists. But once that page is linked through a navigation or through another page, etc., it's going to find it, it's going to generate it, and it's going to do it automatically for you. It's really, really cool feature. And what's really, really cool is that the build is cached. Now, what does that mean? So when I first create my page, my website, when I first generate it, I'm going to have to build everything, right? It's got to go through Webpack. It's going to have to build my assets. It's going to have to build all the JavaScript. It's going to have to build the HTML. It's going to build the CSS, etc., right? Now, once that build is done, if you then change the content, it will only generate the content. So, for example, you modify something in the API, so something in the CMS or in your content folder, so Markdown file, for example, and you press save, and then you want to like regenerate that website. You don't have to rebuild the whole site. Now, we did have to before, but now with the new release of Nuxt, you don't have to do that anymore. It's smarter generate, right? So it knows that nothing has changed in the JavaScript, nothing has changed in like the architecture. So it just kind of skips the build and just generates the files. And that makes it really, really super fast. So if you haven't been using Nuxt in the last couple of months and you were using it before and you weren't happy with how the generate works, I get you, I feel you, you're right. Now go back and try it again, because it is super amazing and it's really, really cool how it works. And I think that takes static site generation to a whole new level. So Nuxt static sites, just to give you an idea of like a few websites, I just chose a few, and like you can build a static site for anything. So even our own one, and it's open source, so feel free to check out the code. Our own website is a static site. Now we are going to be doing more to it and making it even cooler and better, but there's a lot of content there, and there's, you know, there's a couple of interactive things going on. You can sign up for a newsletter, there's a search, and that's still going on as a static site. GitHub stars, right? This is a static site, which is really, really cool. You can see like my face up there in the corner because I'm logged in. So you can log in on the static site. You can then search for your stars through countries, through contributors. That's live on a static site. You can nominate a star. So you can nominate anyone and submit that nomination so that their face appears there. And that's kind of really cool. I was nominated, so I'm going to wait for my face to be there. Can't wait. One day I'm going to be up there. But yeah, you can nominate. You can do that all on a static site. So when someone says static sites are not interactive, I kind of just point them to these kind of sites and say, you know what, they actually are. Now, this is a really cool site. If you want to learn Vue and get like Vue doses sent to your email, or just check the articles, there's weekly articles being published there. Really amazing. And what's really cool, this is updated very recently to the new version of Nuxt. And if you actually check the website, it's super fast. It is so fast, it's amazing. It surprised us and we were like, wow, your site is so fast. So you want to check out like lightning speed, check that site out. And then this is another really cool one that I just like, you know, I mean, we all want to fly these days, right? Where do you want to fly to? This is you can get on this private jet. You can book a flight. That's a static site built in Nuxt. Absolutely brilliant. Really, really cool. So yeah, Michael is basically saying this is the way to go. Static sites are faster and we need to go with static sites. So yeah, seriously do consider going with static sites. So some Nuxt modules to help you build static sites even better, right? So we want to build static sites, we're almost there. And now we want to just enhance them and make them better. So we have the Nuxt PWA. So if you want to build a progressive web app, now many people are scared of progressive web apps because they got service workers and all things going on they don't understand. You just have to like add this module and add it to your Nuxt config. It's very like 4 steps just to do it. And then it's going to give you a service worker. It's going to give you a manifest.json. It's going to give you search engine optimization, friendly metadata, and it's going to give you app icons, like they're going to be generated. So you're going to create one icon, say 512 pixels by 512. You're going to put it in your static folder, and then it's going to automatically generate the ones that it needs for the PWA, for the Apple device, for the Android device, etc. So PWA module is going to help your performance, especially with static sites, because now you've got offline support, and it's just enhances completely your performance. So highly encourage that. Now, if you're working with images, you want to check out Nuxt Cloudinary. Cloudinary is fantastic. If you haven't heard of it, like Cloudinary is free up to a certain amount of usage, right? So if you're like me and have a website that doesn't have millions of visitors every day, then you're going to pay ever for Cloudinary. So it's fantastic. So I really encourage you all to check it out and set up an account and start playing around with it. And what it does is you can get an image, and just by using the URL, you can start enhancing that image, changing things in that image, which is really, really cool because you can just have one image and then just have it on different pages and just change like things. And the module gives you like URL generation, size optimization, so you can make the image smaller, bigger, you can make it rounded, you can do anything you want. Progressive images, so if you're using Chrome, you're going to get the WebP instead of like JPEG on Internet Explorer, for example. And it will auto detect the optimized format. So, for mobile, it's going to give you a better format, a better size, etc. So like, it's just incredible. It's a really, really great module. So check that out. Now we've got the sitemap module as well. So we want to add a sitemap. This adds the static routes to each sitemap, and it also supports internationalization. So if you're using different languages, the sitemap also supports that. So this is a great module. Of course, you could do what they did in the 90s, and like, this is a sitemap from Space Jam. And yeah, this is how we built sitemaps. So instead of having to do all that, the module does it all for you, which is kind of cool. The robots module. So instead of having to like create the robots, you can just Nuxt.js module. It's just going to inject a middleware to generate a robots text file, and then you can just add your like no follow for this page, etc., and you can control your robots very easily. Now, for those who know me, I am a massive Tailwind CSS fan. So Tailwind CSS is seriously amazing. It's going to help your performance as well. And we have a module, the Nuxt Tailwind CSS. Tailwind CSS is a utility-first library. Now, at first you might think, well, yeah, but it's like, no, it's actually really, really good. You have to give it a try. You have to like check it out, because I've worked with it on many large projects. I've tested out many different frameworks, and Tailwind CSS for me has been the most performant, the easiest to use across big teams. And everyone that started using it have actually just come back and said, wow, it's a pleasure to work with it. So seriously, check out Tailwind CSS. Zero configuration to start with this module. Purge CSS included for minimal CSS. And you get to use the latest CSS features, which is always great. And you can reference your Tailwind config in your app. So again, fantastic module. Now, if you don't want to use Tailwind CSS, or your website's already created with another CSS, that's fine, I get it. But still use Purge CSS. Purge CSS will remove unneeded CSS with ease, because sometimes we add things we don't need. We add all those media queries. Sometimes we add like so much, and sometimes we don't need it. So this is going to take it all away. Google Analytics. So you can kind of see, who's looking at your website, and there is a module for that. So you can add Google Analytics integration for Nuxt.js very easily with that module. Now, I know you're kind of sitting there going, and I'm kind of saying, this is what we've got. And you're saying, really? Okay, there's so much to take in. I know. And I've got more to share. Oh, no. Okay, here we go. Some performance tips, right? So if you want to improve your performance, it's really, really important, as we've seen in the last talk and as I've been explaining, your performance is super important. So let's improve it. For example, you can analyze your bundle. So with Nuxt, you can use yarn build -- analyze. And by adding that command, you can actually see what's going on in your bundle. So this will give you this kind of chart, right? You're going to see what's going on. This is a Webpack, and it's looking in all the bundles, and you can see, like, I've got different languages there over there on the right, some nice small bundle sizes. And then I've got that big orange thing, chart.js, right? Now, this is actually worrying because it's really, really, really big. Also, if you can see, it's also putting in moment.js, but not only is it adding moment.js, it's adding every language under the sun. Now, our website doesn't support every language under the sun. So why is this library adding in all this extra languages and things that I don't need and don't want? So thanks to this bundle analyzer, I'm able to see this and then analyze it and then do something about it. And as we've already seen, bundle phobia is great for this. So I can put in chart.js and I get, wow, 430 KBs minified, like 117 minified gzip. Like, that's crazy big. Can I do something about that? Can I change it? So we can see what's going on here, and we can also see the download time. And then underneath that, it also shows you other similar libraries that might be smaller that you could then decide, well, you know what, I missed this feature, but I'm going to get better performance, so let's go with this. Or you might say, no, I don't care about performance. I want this library. That's your choice, and at least you know what you're doing. So check it out, and then you'll be surprised at how much you're putting on your website. CSS overview. This is really great, and it was added to the latest update of Chrome, and we now have a tab in there in the dev tools, the CSS overview, and you can actually see if your website has 50 shades of gray, for example, right? Which sometimes, you know, it's like crazy sometimes looking at all the CSS that's been thrown up there. So this is a great way of like looking at your colors, the font info, checking out the unused declarations, media queries, etc. Really, really, really brilliant. I encourage you all to check that out. And I'm sure that's going to get better over time. Modern mode, right? This is really, really cool because you can actually create a modern bundle. What does that mean? Well, basically, if you kind of, you know, when you're creating JavaScript, we then use Babel and we kind of like put all those polyfills, we put all those other stuff in that you don't actually need, right? But you need it because the browsers are not as up to date as our code. We're writing code that's better than the browser can handle. But we have modern browsers that are better than other browsers, right? So the modern browsers don't need all those polyfills. They don't need all that extra JavaScript. So what do? Well, we can create two bundles, right? So we create two bundles, and one bundle, depending on when you're on your client side, depending on what browser you're using, is going to use the modern bundle for like say Chrome, and if it's not Chrome, it's going to use the other bundle. And this is really easy to add. You literally just yarn generate -- modern, right? Simple as that. And then you're going to get that modern bundle, and you'll get the other bundle as well. Now, I encourage you to do this in the production environment and not the dev environment, because it will slow down your development production because it's going to be building that extra bundle and you don't need it in dev. So just add it to the build one. So I know it's kind of a lot to take in, right? And I'm literally like looking in your ear and I'm kind of saying, has that gone in one ear and out the other, or have you retained all that information? So I really hope you have retained it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to send Daffy Duck out to kind of check your ears. So yeah, it's coming up. We're wrapping up right now. So basically what I want you to take away from this is that static sites are here to stay. So try and like seriously think about working with static sites. If you're working with Nuxt.js, which I hope you all are, if not, you should all start checking out Nuxt.js. Nuxt.js is a framework built on Vue.js, so you're using Vue code. And with Nuxt.js, it was originally created for building server-side rendered applications. So that was the goal of it, right? And you can build server-side rendered applications. You can also build single-page applications, progressive web apps, and static sites. And you can change easily from one to another very, very simply by literally just changing the config. By target static, and then you got a static site, mode universal for static sites, and that's it. And then literally just use a generate command instead of the build. So if you've got a website out there, seriously encourage you to check it out and start like seeing the differences. So build your site so that they are here to stay. That's also really, really important. If you're building a website of today, try and make sure that your website is gonna work in the future as well, not just today. Space Jam, for those of you that worry that the website might disappear, it's not. There's now a Twitter bot that's out there every 3 hours. It's checking to see if that website is online. So if you're worried that's going to be taken away, don't worry. Every 3 hours it checks and it makes sure Space Jam is not going anywhere. That's here to stay. That's great. Remember that website, go check that out as well. And yeah, wrapping up, put performance first. Really, really encourage you to put not you first, but the users, the other people that are using your website or that might want to use your website, put them first and try create really, really incredible static sites, because you're going to get great performance if you do create those static sites. Don't forget as well greener ones. So yeah, seriously, static sites triple equals great performance. And spoiler alert, they say this is coming next year. I don't know if it's going to happen because of COVID and everything like that. I'm hoping it does, but Space Jam 2 coming out in 2021. I can't wait for that. And what's really exciting is that the developer said, wouldn't it be cool to recreate the website Space Jam 2 with the same technology and like, you know, try and build it like nowadays of how it was built back then. I think it would be really, really great to rebuild Space Jam 2 as a Nuxt static site, and then to test the differences between the static site of 96 and the static site of today with the same kind of similar content, the same kind of similar way. And just, you know, you can really see how cool and how performant meta frameworks like Nuxt are. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. I really hope this happens. And my last question for you basically is, are you Nuxt? I really hope you are. Thank you very much. My name is Debbie O'Brien. And if you want to know more about Nuxt, just find me, have a chat to me. And yeah, I've created a blog post on Nuxt content. If you want to hear more about that. And I've got some courses on Vue School as well. So check them out. Come chat to me, say hello. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Debbie, for your nice talk. Usually the audience would now be giving you a round of applause, but maybe you guys at home can just use the chat for clapping. Debbie will check it out later. There were questions. The first one, how would you set up static site generation required for SEO for a single page app with a site with 10 million plus pages with over 1 billion uniques per month?
That's kind of cool. I would love to see that. I don't know, like I said, the crawler is going to do it automatically, right? So you don't need to actually do much. You could change it. So you've already built your single page application. It's already in Nuxt. Then why not just give it a go and test it out and see what happens, right? So literally you just, you're using mode SPA. So change that to mode universal, and then just add target static and choose the generate command, put it on Netlify and check it out. I mean, why not? So I would definitely love to see the results of it.
Second question, do you have some tips for mostly dynamic sites like metric dashboards?
Like metric dashboards. So mostly dynamic. So it depends on what you need that's changing stuff. So I've seen e-commerce sites being built with Nuxt, for example. There's a lot of things being built, but obviously like you're going to build something like Amazon, right? That's changing by the minute. That has a hell of a lot of constant changes. So you might not want to build an Amazon as a static site, but there could be there's a lot of smaller shops. This is not built with Nuxt, but it's one of my favorites, Smashing Magazine, and they actually sell things. They have an online shop as well, and they're built as a static site. And they've got like a lot of live things going on, a lot of content. They have actually hundreds of pages of content. They're a mega amazing example of a static site. So everything is possible, but sometimes you have to see what you need, what you want. But I always say, check it out. If you build a static site first and it's not working for you, then just go to server-side rendering. Simple as that.
Okay, that's all. And so thanks for attending, guys at home, and have a nice time at our conference. This is the last day of it. And please do not forget to rate this talk in Swapcard. Yay. There's a 5-star rating system, so make sure you rate this talk.
Thank you.
Bye, Debbie.
Bye.